Hi everyone, I'm Lady Teddy. I'm going to be reading to you guys from Magium, which is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure story game app that is free on both Android and iOS, and it's really good. I highly recommend you guys all download it for yourself. I have a lot of respect for the author. There's a ton of different playthroughs that you're able to do. Currently, we were doing a good, smart playthrough, but in order to get to book 3, we need to get 25 achievements in book 2, so we are achievement hunting, so we can do whatever we think is going to be the achievement to get there. Achievement hunting in book 2 is significantly more complicated, so I actually have the achievement guide up right now, so that, oh, why didn't it go to book 2? There we go. So that I'll be able to see which ones are even possible with where we are right now. Yeah. I'm going to be reading out loud. I'll be reading to you guys which ones I'm pretty sure that we can get as we go. I think we only need like 6 more. Yeah. I could also spend money to just skip straight to the next book, and I'm willing to do that because I would like to support the author. But at the same time, it's kind of fun seeing the different paths that we're able to do. And whenever I've asked you guys have agreed that we should just do the thing. If you have any questions, I know we're in the middle of the story, and it's a pretty complicated story. So if you have any questions about what's going on, feel free to ask. If you don't want to play it for yourself, all of my previous readings are in a Magium playlist on YouTube, so you could always check it out there. There. Yeah. Also, I have all sound alerts turned off since this is supposed to be relaxing. Yeah. I know that the reason I started doing this is because people like the sound of my voice and were saying they were falling asleep to my stream anyways, and I should find excuses to read, so here we are. If people just want to relax and listen to my voice, if people just want to fall asleep, that is totally fine. There's no pressure to participate. But if you do want to participate, what I do is I read out loud what the options are, and I'll give y'all about a minute. And if people do want to participate, I will go with whatever the majority of chat says. If no one says anything, then I will just make a decision. Yeah. I mean, I think it's more fun when there are people participating and chatting. But there's no pressure. And it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes people do, sometimes people don't. So like I said, book 2, chapter 2, the achievements for chapter 2 are... So we already got Come At Me Bro, take all of your opponent's hits head on, instead of trying to defend yourself. Next would be the easy way out, accept the help of a shady individual without lying to him in exchange for making your life easier in the arena, which I set that up in the last chapter. Fourth wall breaker, make a reference that your game character would have no way, we won't be able to do this one. And Griffin Rider, ride a griffin and live to tell the tale. We might be able to do that one, I'm not sure. You should. If you do, you should also tell me about it, because I think it's really exciting. I got I made sure to get the author's permission to do this. I probably could, since it's a free game, I probably could have gotten away with it. But I have so much respect for him that, like, I would love to get him. Yes. And here's why. It's a very complicated story, and there are decisions you make throughout it. Green means you did it, yes. There's some that we just will not be able to because we've made the wrong decisions in the past, like in the past book, in the past chapters. There's also some that require you having certain stats because we have a stat device, and we don't have the available points. We don't have the right point layout to get those achievements. We intentionally went back to make sure we had toughness to get the first achievement here, which is why I'm not sure if we'll be able to get... Actually, I can check right here. Oh, we will be able to get Griffin Rider. Yes, we will be able to get Griffin Rider. So those are the two that we'll be able to do. In order to get the fourth wall breaker, we need to be doing the average Joe run, which means no stat points have been used. Okay. What's going on right now is the party was in the same area when a noble was killed, and they couldn't blame the actual killer, so his party is being blamed for it, and the way that they're being punished is they're being put in a life and death gladiator arena, where he and his division that he's been assigned to have to fight real monsters to survive. If they survive, then the gods have deemed them fit, and that's just the way that they decide to handle it. But the dude in charge of it is going out of his way to make sure that they were all separated from each other and they will all die. He's meeting his division. He met this chick Layla in his division. She asked if they could go talk privately in their room. It turns out she is also a Lisathi, which is a rare race of people. And she also has a stat device, but hers is different. You can tell that just by looking at it? I asked her. No, of course not, Layla writes. Not by looking. I can tell by sensing the flow of magical energy surrounding it. Can't you? Well, I guess I can sort of feel the flow of it, I say, but there's no way I could tell which one of our two devices is gathering more than the other. That's strange, Layla writes. If you can't even tell the difference between our two devices, then how did you know that the stat booster was designed to work for Lisathi before coming to this tournament? From what you've told me, it doesn't seem like you are acquainted with any other Lisathi, so you must have discovered it on your own somehow. Unless... Layla pauses. Unless you had absolutely no idea how powerful the device would really be, Layla continues, and you were planning to keep pretending that you were a Stillwater until the end of the tournament with your stat device only as a backup plan. What do you mean? Of course I knew that the device works better for a Lisathi. Actually, to be honest, before coming here, I didn't even know that I was a Lisathi. I don't have a preference here. If one of you guys would like to, Am I a secret angel in the story? No. The goal of this story... Barry came to this tournament thinking he was an ordinary human. He's been searching his entire life for a way to become a mage, and he thinks that if he can somehow bluff his way into winning this mage tournament with the most powerful mages in the world, if he could get to the end, he thinks the prize could help him achieve his dream of becoming a mage. While here, he's found out that he is actually half Lisathi. Lisathi is a race that is only found... They look like humans, they act like humans, but they have almost no magical aura, unlike normal humans. And they are only found on Varathia. Yeah. Actually, to be honest, before coming here, I didn't even know I was a Lisathi. You mean you thought you were a human? Layla writes. No. Nope, no hints whatsoever. He thought he was a normal human. Turns out that he's adopted. Which he found out through a traumatic flashback. Sort of thing. Magical traumatic flashback. Yeah, that's what I meant, I say. Layla starts to giggle silently while covering her mouth with her hand. I can't believe how crazy you are, Layla writes. No one in their right mind would even think of trying to bluff their way through this tournament like this. Now I understand why you seem so calm, even after you've heard what the arena owner is preparing for us. This is just another regular day for you, isn't it? Well, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it regular, I say. This is only the third time I've been thrown into a prison since I came to Varathia. There's still room for improvement. Hey, you two! I hear a guard shouting to us from the window of Layla's cell. You can have all the private conversations you want on your own free time. This is the recreation period. Get back outside. Aye, aye, sir, I say, and we both head back towards the recreation area. Once we're out, we both get back to our original positions without saying another word to each other. We've already said what we needed to say, and there was no reason to give Wilhelm any more opportunities to spy on our conversations. The rest of the recreation period was spent in silence. There was nothing for us to discuss about the upcoming fights, and nobody seemed to be in the mood for idle chatter. Since we couldn't just stand and do nothing for 2 hours, each of us tried to find something to occupy our time with. Bruce started doing push-ups, Wilhelm chose to sharpen his dagger, I spent my time reading from my notebook, and the two thugs decided to play some dice. Layla seemed to be the only one content with simply standing there, gazing at an empty wall in front of her until the recreation period ended. As soon as the recreation period was over, we all went quietly back to our cells. I continued to read from my notebook for a few more hours after leaving the recreation area. I've been reading through my notes about various creatures that I've come across in my studies, but there are so many of them that it's difficult to memorize all of the information by heart. I still remember the day that I enchanted this notebook. It was the day that I decided to begin my journey around the world in hopes of finding a way to become a mage. The enchantment cost me a fortune, but it was still a lot cheaper than enchanting a backpack, and it was more than what I needed for my intents and purposes. A notepad with an endless number of pages. Was there any other tool that could have served me better in my quest for knowledge? I skimmed through the pages again, trying to guess which creatures in the arena's I skimmed through the pages again, trying to guess which creatures the arena's owner is most likely to throw at us. There are harpies, wargs, wyverns, three-headed hounds, mammoths, giant spiders, giant eagles. The list is endless. And let's not forget that each type of creature has its own subcategories that cannot be ignored. Because they are sometimes wildly different from each other. You can have red spiders, green spiders, white spotted black spiders, and even 10-legged spiders, each of them with their own unique behaviors and weaknesses. Now that I think about it, Bruce mentioned that the arena's owner was fond of dangerous creatures. But does that mean that he might be keeping monsters of the humanoid type here as well? Monsters might be treated... Boston Small, welcome back. I'm glad you like it. Monsters might be treated as if they are mindless creatures, but by most people... Monsters might be treated as if they are all mindless creatures by most people, but the reality is a little different. Monsters of the humanoid variety are generally much more intelligent than the average creature. Some of them are even organized in tribes, and they can communicate advanced information with each other through their own languages, even if most of them don't speak common. The ogres from the fort were one such example. If they have any monsters here that are as strong as the ogre captain or the shaman, then we might be in for one hell of a fight. As I sit on my bed and read, I suddenly hear a man's voice coming from my cell's window. "Greetings," the voice says. I turn around to see if I can get a glimpse of the man's face, but he is hiding behind the wall outside my cell. "Do I know you?" I ask him. "No," the voice says, "but I heard that there was a fellow Lasathi among the prisoners who were brought here yesterday evening, so I came to pay you a visit." "A fellow Lasathi, you say?" I tell him. "Yes," the voice says. "I'm here to offer you a deal. Normally we do not deal with criminals, but since you are a Lasathi, I believe it is only fair to give you a second chance." He pauses. "Go on," I say. "You see," the voice continues, "we couldn't help but notice that the King of Thilius seems to have placed an unusual amount of trust in you and your companions, enough trust to invite you into his secret room below the throne. That is not the kind of invitation that is easily acquired." He pauses again to see if I have anything to say. He waits for a few more seconds, and then he continues from where he left off. "The deal that we want to offer you is simple," the voice says. "All you need to do is to convince the king to let you into his secret room again, while carrying one of our devices." "Is this device of yours a bomb, by any chance?" I ask him. The voice laughs softly. "Of course not," he says. "If we wanted to assassinate the king, I assure you that there would be much easier, risk-free methods to use in order to get the job done." "Then what is it you are trying to do?" "We are trying to subtly interfere with the way that one of the Gnome King's own devices works. One of the Gnome King's inventions is currently making his secret room completely soundproof, which stops us from listening in on his private conversations. However, at the moment we do not have any agents that the king trusts enough to allow them access to his secret room. This is why we turn to you. We are not asking you to do this for free, of course. There are ways in which we could make your fights here in the arena much easier for you. All you need to do is agree to help us, and we will take care of the rest." Lie to the Lasathi and accept the deal and betray them later. Refuse the Lasathi's offer. Accept the Lasathi's offer. The achievement we are seeking, the next one. The easy way out. Accept the help of a shady individual without lying to him in exchange for making your life easier in the arena. You would lie, but the achievement we are seeking is to make our life easier without lying. It is the coward's way. In the actual playthrough, we did not accept this deal. But right now we are achievement hunting. Which means that to get the achievement, we need to accept this last one. Don't worry, in our actual playthrough, we not only lied to them to get help, we go and assassinate all of the Lasathi leaders because they suck. In order to get to book 3, though, we need to get achievements. Achievement unlocked, the easy way out. I suppose we have an agreement then, I say. Excellent, the Losathi says. Here is the device that I told you about. The Losathi throws a small piece of metal through the window of my room. It looks rather ordinary, except for a few engravings on it. Make sure that you don't lose it, the Losathi says. It would be difficult to obtain a spare. I can hear the Losathi moving to leave. Oh, he says, and you should be expecting a last-minute addition to your team before the arena event begins. He will take care of most of your problems. With these last words, the Losathi makes his departure. I wait for a minute to make sure that he's gone for good, and then I get back to reading my notebook. Hearing check successful level 3. Not long after the Losathi leaves, I start to hear some voices in a distant hallway outside my cell. I recognize one of the voices as that of the guard who woke me up this morning. Hey, did you hear about this morning's meeting? The guard says. The one between the owner and the ambassador? The other voice says. Yeah, the guard says. I hear that they're bringing out the Minotaur for round 2. The Minotaur? The other voice asks, shocked. You mean the undefeated champion of the arena? The one and only, the guard says. And I heard that they're going to use the giant scorpions and the manticores for round 1. What about round 3? The other voice says. Will there still be duels between the gladiators? Yeah, the survivors will have to fight each other in one-on-one duels at the end, the guard says. But nobody is expecting any of them to make it past round 1. The last phrase was barely audible, as the guards were getting further and further away from me while they talked. The last thing I hear from them is the roaring of their laughter as their voices fade away completely. Scorpions and manticores, huh? It's a good thing that I got extensive notes written about them in my notebook. At least we won't go in completely unprepared. I spent the rest of the afternoon reading from my notes. When I felt like taking a break, I called Darren, Kate, and Hadrick through the transceivers to find out how they were doing. Darren told me that he couldn't stand any of his teammates and that they were all cowardly mercenaries who had come here to make easy money. Kate said that she almost killed one of her teammates during the recreation period, and that she only stopped when she found out that it was against the rules. No one had tried to pick a fight with her since. Hadrick seemed to be doing a little better. From what he told me, he's already made most of his teammates into his drinking buddies, and they were spending a lot more time in the recreation area than the 2 daily hours that they were required to. I also made sure to tell my friends everything that I heard from the 2 guards earlier, as well as the weaknesses and behaviors of each type of scorpions and manticores that I knew of. Hopefully this information will help them out in some way. After I finished talking to everyone, I got back to my reading, and I kept doing that until later in the evening when I was interrupted by the creak of a door, and by the sound of a familiar voice. Farewell. I hear the disinterested voice of the desk worker coming from the recreation area as a door slams shut. I immediately realize what this means, and I open the door of my cell to see who the newest member of our division is. The man who just entered the recreation area is simply radiating magical energy, and he makes no attempt at hiding it. However, he does not appear to be one of the tournament's participants because I'm seeing a warning sign above his head telling me not to hurt him. He must be one of the local mages, judging by the look on his face. It's clear that he didn't come here of his own free will, so he's likely been sent here by He has likely been sent here because he broke into... blah blah. He must be one of the local mages. Judging by the look on his face, it's clear that he didn't come here of his own free will. So he's likely been sent here because he broke some Varathian law in some way. Oh my gosh, I just got a raid. Hang on, let me finish this paragraph. The mage notices me, and he doesn't bother to acknowledge my presence as he goes directly into his room. Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording. I'm pausing. Currently they are in an arena fighting for their life. Well, they're going to. They're in their division, and eventually they're going to have to be in an arena to fight for their life. The achievement that we are going to be hunting, because some of them we're not even able to do, but we're in chapter 2 right now, we were not going to be able to get Fourth Wall Breaker. So the next one we're looking for is Griffin Rider. Ride a griffin and live to tell the tale. Oh yeah, Irish, if you need to go take care of yourself and de-stream, do what you need to do. Thank you again. The rest of the day was mostly uneventful, except for a drunk call that I got from Hadrick on the transceiver, who insisted on passing me to one of his teammates because of the funny way in which he impersonated a famous noble from the Western continent. Next book. We've already completed book 2. We need 25 achievements to get to book 3. So we only need 5 more. The next morning I was woken up by the same guard from the previous day, telling me that the recreation period had started. Wakey wakey, the guard says. It's recreation time. I open the door to my cell and start heading towards the empty area of the recreation room, just like yesterday. As I walk, I overhear the 2 thugs from my division talking loudly several feet away from me, and I turn around to see what's going on. It looks like they're talking to Layla, as she is casually leaning with her back against the wall, watching them silently. Hey, princess, one of the thugs says. How about you take us both into your room like you did with the Stillwater yesterday? Yeah, the other thug says. We have some very important tactical information that we'd like to discuss with you. Layla continues to look at them without saying anything. The first thug who spoke concludes that he wasn't being intimidating enough, so now he places both of his hands on the wall behind her, as he leans closer to her face. Listen, princess, the thug says. You can drop the silent act. I know that you can understand me. So you'd better wise up and do what I say, or else I'm going to hurt you so bad that you'll wish you... The thug doesn't get to finish his sentence, because Layla decided she's had enough, and she punches him so hard in the stomach that the man fell down and starts rolling on the floor in pain. You bitch, the other thug says as he pulls out his knife, but he doesn't get a chance to use it because a sudden kick from Layla sends him flying into a nearby wall. Scarlet Gravy, thank you so much for the lurk. By the gods, that was amazing! We hear Bruce shout from the other end of the room. He rushes over to Layla and he grabs her by both her shoulders. Layla Layla looks a bit shocked, but she quickly realizes that there is no ill intent behind the man's actions, so she doesn't attack him. With strength like that, you could take out a small battalion by yourself, Bruce says enthusiastically. How did they even manage to capture you? Suddenly, Bruce realizes that he got carried away too much, and he releases Layla from his grasp. I'm sorry. Bruce says, "I know that you don't like to talk, but I just want you to know that I've got your back. Whenever you feel like you're in a pinch in the arena, remember that you can count on me to help." That's all I wanted to say. Layla looks a little confused, but she nods slowly in acknowledgement of his words. "All right then," Bruce says. "I'll be over there, if you need me." He then turns away from her, and he goes back to his end of the room. The thug that got punched in the stomach manages to get back on his feet, and he's now rushing towards his fallen comrade, who still hasn't woken from his collision with the wall. Eventually, he manages to wake him up, and then they both walk towards their corner of the room without even daring to glance towards Layla on their way back. Nothing else happened during the 2-hour-long recreation period. The mage from yesterday isolated himself, just like everyone else, and he hasn't exchanged a single word with anyone. I would have expected Wilhelm to welcome him to the division like he did with me, but it seems that he didn't consider him worthy of the bother. After we return to our cells, I go to sit on my bed and I open my notebook. Not long after I start reading, I hear three light knocks on my door. "Who is it?" I ask. There is no answer. A few seconds later, there are 3 more knocks on the door, which are a little louder than the last ones. Open the door, tell them that I'm not answering the door until I get an answer. I will go with whatever the chat wants, or I will make a decision in about a minute. We're powerful? Not really. We have no magical powers, but we have the we are smart and resourceful, and we've got this stat device, so we are very strong, very tough, very observational, we speak all of the languages, and we can hear shit. Okay, I'm still giving y'all about a minute because I want to rest my voice for a second. If there's anyone else that would like to pitch in. So we do know that it is against the rules for any of our team members to critically injure or kill another one of their team members. It could be someone who's outside, but they'd have to get past the guards. But we know that the only people who are powerful enough to do that we know of are the Lisathi, and they think we are allied with them for the moment. Alright, let's open the door. I'm sorry. My dog, I just woke up my dog. She's where my feet go. Okay, I'll be right there, I say as I put my notebook down and get up from the bed. When I open the door, I'm surprised to see that my mysterious visitor was in fact Layla. "Oh, it's you," I say. Layla doesn't say anything, but I see her blue writing forming in front of her, as usual. Can you come with me for a moment? Can you come with me?" Layla writes. "There's something I need to show you." "Sure," I say. "Just let me lock the door." After I'm done locking the door behind me, I follow Layla and we head towards her cell. Once we're both inside her room, she locks the door and she points towards the wall behind her bed, with her blue writing, and her blue writing appears in front of her once again. Please place your hand on the wall and tell me if you feel anything special," Layla writes. I place my hand on the wall, like she says, but I don't feel anything. "Could you give me some sort of hint?" I say. "What am I looking for, exactly?" "Don't try to look," Layla writes. "You need to feel it. Try concentrating your magical sense on your hand as you are touching the wall, and you will understand what I mean." As I do what Layla says, I suddenly realize that the wall is somehow resonating perfectly with my magical aura, and that it's reacting directly to my touch. "Okay, you're right," I tell her. "There's definitely more to this wall than you can tell just by looking, but it's not doing anything. Even if it's reacting directly to my touch, I feel like it's still waiting for something to happen." Layla nods. "That's because the wall on the opposite side of the room is made in the same way," Layla writes. "I think that these walls react directly to our Lusathi auras, and that they are supposed to act as switches that need to be pressed at the same time by two different Lusathi." "Switches for what?" I ask. "For opening a passage that leads to the underground caverns beneath these tunnels," Layla writes. I've seen these kinds of switches before in other buildings made by Lusathi. They always open up secret passages. And I've heard that the caverns below us are where the arena's owner is keeping the creatures locked up. If we could get a quick look, we would at least know what we'll be going up against. Or even better, we could sabotage the whole show by killing the creatures one by one, while they are all in their cages, instead of fighting them all at once in the arena." "That does sound tempting," I say. "But what if they catch us? Won't they be able to disqualify us for cheating?" "There are no rules that say we can't kill the creatures before the arena event begins," Layla writes. "However," Layla pauses. "However, what?" I ask. "However," Layla continues, "the rules of the arena do state that the safety of the participants is not guaranteed outside of the area designated for their division. So, what you're saying is that if they catch us in the act, they can unleash all of their beasts upon us without any restraint." Layla nods. "We can just go take a look," Layla writes. "And if we see that there are too many guards, we'll go back to our cells." I pause a bit to think. "All right," I say. "We'll take one look, and we can decide after that." Layla nods again. She then goes to the other end of the room near the door, extending her hand towards the wall. "Are you ready?" she writes. "As ready as I'll ever be, I guess," I say. Layla then places her hand on the wall, and at the same time I can feel a sort of magical current flowing through my palm. Almost immediately afterwards, the floor beneath us opens up, and the next thing we know, we are both falling into a pit while we can see the floor to our room slowly closing itself back up above our heads. After what seemed like 100-foot drop, we fall into an underground lake with a big splash. As I tread water to keep myself afloat, I take a look above me to see if there's any way that we could go back the way we came. Yeah, I guess. The cavern walls and ceiling around us seem to be littered with some sort of glowing blue crystals that are providing a fair bit of lighting throughout the arena. But I see no throughout the area. Wow, I think I might need to end. I'm stuttering more than usual. I'm sorry, guys. The cavern's walls and ceiling around us seem to be littered with some sort of glowing blue crystals that are providing a fair bit of lighting throughout the area, but I see no obvious way of climbing back up to our cell. The only things leading upwards are some ropes that are tied to a pulley which is hanging from the ceiling, but there's no way I could climb all the way up there on the rope. There's no way I could climb all the way up there on some rope. Suddenly, I hear the sound of repeated splashing water behind me, and as I turn to look, I see Layla desperately flinging her arms through the water, with her mouth wide open, looking as if she'd forgotten that she couldn't talk and was trying to scream. Realizing what's happening, I quickly swim towards her and grab her by the shoulders in order to stop her arms from flailing. "Layla, it's okay," I tell her, as she's looking at me terrified. "Just grab onto me. I'll lead us to shore." It takes her a few moments, but eventually she calms down and she grabs onto me with both of her arms, holding me very tightly. Once I lead her safely back to the shore, we take a break to catch our breaths. We are both soaked to the skin, and the air around here is definitely not as warm as it is on the surface. Ideally, I could make a fire in this situation, but is there any wood to be found in an underground cavern such as this? My question gets immediately answered as I turn around to see a wooden cabin a few hundred feet from where we're standing. There's also a big pile of logs stacked up right in front of its door. How convenient. As I look towards the cabin, Layla pulls on my shirt to get my attention. When I turn to look at her, I see that she's lying on her knees with her wet hair covering most of her face, and her head bowed down. "I'm sorry," she writes simply. "About what?" I ask. "About dragging you into this," she writes. "Layla," I say, "if you hadn't dragged me into this, you would have ended up drowning in that lake." Layla keeps staring at the ground as her writing slowly disappears. "Listen," I say. "There's nothing to be sorry about. I didn't think that this would be a trap either. I'm still not sure if it's a trap, actually. I mean, I'm sure that this was designed as a trap originally, but who knows if anyone even remembers that it exists. Either way, even if we've lost our way back, I don't think that we're in the wrong place. The only thing that's changed is that now we have to look for a way back to ourselves, while we are looking for the creatures." As I talk to Layla, the ropes leading to the ceiling are starting to catch my attention. They are coming out of the water, and the way that they are distanced from each other makes me think that they are tied to some sort of platform at the bottom of the lake. Possibly an elevator. I wonder if there's a lever or something at the bottom of the lake that could activate the elevator and get us out of here. Swim to the bottom of the lake to see if I can find a way to start the elevator, ignore the elevator, and go directly for the wooden cabin to start a fire. Han, Fire, welcome in. How you doing? And it is really good. I highly recommend it. It's called Magium, and it's free. Y'all have about a minute. Welcome back, Irish Poo here. So I see Asfel votes swim. Max says don't ignore. Hi Hunfire. Okay. Everyone's voting swim. I just thought of something, I say. Do you see those ropes? Layla nods. I think that they might be tied to a platform at the lower end, I say. I want to check out the bottom of the lake and see if there isn't a lever of some sort that I can use to activate the elevator. Can you wait for me here? Okay, Layla writes. I jump into the lake and I swim back towards the ropes. When I reach them, I take a deep breath and I dive into the water. It seems like I was right. There really is a platform at the very bottom of the lake tied to the ropes. However, there is no obvious mechanism that looks like it could be used to operate the elevator as far as I can see. The only thing that looks like something of the sort is a stone pillar next to the platform with a hole at the top, shaped like a spider. If this elevator is requiring some kind of spider-shaped key in order to get activated, then I'm out of luck. After a few more unsuccessful rounds of circling the platform for signs of a lever, I finally run out of breath and I go back to the surface to get some air in my lungs. This is pointless. Even if I find that spider key, there's no way I can operate this elevator. I might as well go back to shore. Main character is actually a man. Barry. But it seems like he was, if he was able to do multiple rotations of this platform. Spider key. Did you find anything? Layla writes as she sees me get out of the water. I didn't see any levers, I say, as I squeeze the water out of my shirt. The most I could find was a pillar with a spider-shaped hole in it. Unless we find a spider-shaped key of some sort, that elevator isn't going to be of much use to us. Let's head for the cabin. Maybe we'll find some flint or something to start a fire with. Layla nods, and we both start walking towards the cabin. There's something that's been bugging me about this wooden cabin since I first saw it. Unless there are some trees miraculously growing in these caverns somewhere, this cabin would not have been built by someone who got trapped here before us. This means that it was most likely built by the same persons who designed the trap, or at least by the people who know about it, and who can reach this place by some other means. The fact that there are a bunch of logs conveniently placed right next to the lake in which we fell makes me believe that this was done intentionally. Why would they go out of their way to make things more comfortable for us? Is this their way of granting us our last wish before they send the beasts to kill us? As we reach the cabin, I go inside carefully, making sure that there are no traps. The cabin doesn't have any fireplace or chimney, but there's some firewood inside, and also some flint. I take the firewood and flint outside, and then I take some sort of dried up moss from the cave's walls to provide a bit of kindling. Once we've set up the fire, Layla and I sit ourselves next to it, trying to get as close to the heat as we can. Shaylin Marie, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. Hey, this isn't half bad, I tell Layla as the two of us do our best to warm ourselves up by the fire. For a quick improvised fire that we lighted from flint and moss, I'd say we did pretty well. Layla nods. She then turns her back to the fire, trying to dry her hair without getting burnt. Hey, I've always meant to ask, I say, as I watch her dry her hair. Is silver your natural hair color? I've never seen anyone with silver hair before, but then again, I can't say that I've met many Lisathi in my life. Layla doesn't answer me, and she just stares in front of her for a while. It's difficult to tell what expression she has on her face because of the hair in her eyes. Is this something that you don't want to talk about? I say. No, it's fine, Layla writes. She pauses. Have you ever heard of the Beacon of Hope? She writes. If you're talking about the orphanage that was experimenting with creating artificial mages, then yes, I've heard of it, I say. Were you one of the Lisathi who worked there? Layla shakes her head. No, she writes. I was one of the failed experiments. The reason why my hair is silver is because it lost its color gradually, as a side effect of the several years in which they experimented on me, trying to make me into a mage. My hair used to be pitch black. Oh, gods, I say. Is this also the reason why you lost your voice? No, Layla writes. I was born this way. And I was given hell because of it. I don't remember much from when I was little, but I do remember that the other Lisathi what the other Lisathi used to say about me. They said that I wasn't a real Lisathi. They said that the Lisathi are a pure race that cannot have any birth defects, and they suspected that the reason why I was born a mute was because I was in fact a half Lisathi. I think that even the person that I once used to call my father had doubts about me. He never seemed to consider me his real child, and he always used to blame my mother for dying and for leaving him to care for her daughter. That's probably why he didn't think twice when they asked if any of the Lisathi who worked at the beacon were willing to volunteer their children for experimentation. Wait. You just said that you used to call him your father, I say. But you said yesterday that the reason why you were brought here was because you saved your father from slavery. This person you saved, is he someone other than your natural father? The person that I saved was the one that I've been calling father for the past 10 years, Layla writes. He is the one who rescued me from the beacon all those years ago, when I was almost about to give up. He was the one who rescued me from the beacon all those years ago, when I was almost about to give up all hope. Is this why the two of you became outcasts? I ask her. Layla nods. My father had been one of the caretakers at the beacon, Layla writes. When he couldn't bear to see us suffer any longer, he decided to help us escape, even if he knew that this meant he would be marked as an outcast for the rest of his life. Were there any others who escaped with you? I ask her. Layla shakes her head. My father tried to convince the other children to follow him, but they were too afraid to trust him, Layla writes. They must have thought that he was trying to trick them. He didn't have time to talk to all of them because one of the orphans ratted him out to the other Lisathi, and he was forced to make a run for it. He made one last attempt to save the orphans, opening their cells before leaving the facility, but in the end, I was the only one who followed him. Didn't they try to capture you afterwards? I say. They did, Layla writes. That's why we were forced to live the next few years of our lives hiding. Schmidt, welcome in. We're achievement hunting. We found one of the achievements. The recording has been going for almost an hour, so. They did, Layla writes. That's why we were forced to live the next few years of our lives hiding in the woods of Varathia. At first, we would change our location once every few years to make sure that they don't pick up on our trail. But after a few months, my father finally managed to obtain all the parts he needed to make a suggestion device. Suggestion spells are spells that can implant certain thoughts into the minds of people and make them think that these thoughts are in fact their own. The device that my father made could cast a spell that would make people avoid an area. The device that my father made could cast a spell that would make people avoid an area, because every time they went near it, they would get a sudden urge to go around it. Oh, I know this spell, I say. I have a friend who uses it all the time. This spell allowed us to finally settle down in one place, Layla writes. We built our own wooden cabin in the middle of the woods near a river, and we even cultivated a garden. Some of the animals appeared to be immune to the suggestion spell, but they didn't seem to mind our presence. They even brought us food on occasion. So, how did your father get captured then? I ask. Did your suggestion spell malfunction? It's going well, Red Cook. Welcome in. I should be ending soon. I'm also stuttering like way more than usual. Or, at least a little more than usual. No, Layla writes. We moved out of the woods eventually. We heard that the Lasathi's leadership had changed while we were away, and that their new leader, Meredith, had prohibited the hunts for Lasathi outcasts. My father insisted that we move into a city because then we would have easier access to the parts he needed to work on his devices. At the time, I did not understand why he would want to risk his safety just to work on some devices. I only understood his true purpose a few years later, when he gifted me my stat booster on my 16th birthday. Back then, it could only write a few words. But he's been perfecting it over the years, and eventually it got to a point where I could put almost all of my thoughts into words by using my device. Oh no, I say. I just remembered something. What? Layla writes. The device, I say as I quickly pull the stat booster out of my pocket. I completely forgot about the stat device. I start to shake the stat booster to make sure that it doesn't have any water in it. And then I test all of the buttons one by one without locking in any stats to see if everything still functions properly. When Layla understands what I'm doing, she begins to giggle silently. It will take more than a little water to make these devices stop working, Layla writes. Don't worry. Your stat booster is fine. I'm sorry, I say, after I've made sure that the stat device still works. I shouldn't have interrupted. You were about to tell me how your father got captured. Yes, Layla writes. You see, the thing is that even if the hunts for the outcast were prohibited, that did not mean that the old grudges had been forgotten. The Lasathi who worked with my father at the beacon had been meaning to punish him for a long time, but they couldn't do it openly. So what they did eventually was that they forged some documents stating that my father had a huge debt to the owner of our house. They got the owner on their side, and he lied, saying that we never paid our rent since we moved into his home. We didn't have any witnesses on our side, while the Lasathi had all the witnesses and all the fake documents that they needed to prove my father's guilt. Given that he couldn't pay his debt, my father was sold as a slave to one of the nobles of Thilius. I escaped before they could sell me too, and I've been living on the outskirts of the city for months, trying to find a way to free him. But it wasn't until the beginning of the tournament that I actually got a chance to do it. As Layla stops talking, I suddenly realize that I've been asking her all these questions, but I never even bothered to tell her that I'm currently traveling with one of her old colleagues from the beacon. Should I tell her, though? Layla never told me anything about... Kate never told me anything about Layla before. She only mentioned Diane. Was this because she thought Layla was dead, or because she considered her an enemy for being a Lasathi? I'm not sure if I'd want to get this girl's hopes up in case Layla never wants to see her. Tell her about Kate? Don't tell her about Kate. Once we finish Layla's story time, I'm gonna end. Kate is another member of the party who is one of the very few survivors. One of 4 known survivors of the Beacon of Hope, which is a facility run by evil Lasathi where they experimented on human orphans, because no one cares about orphans, to try and create artificial mages. Most people died, and once the beacon was shut down, they took all of the rejects and dumped them in the forest or jungle by themselves with a dagger. Kate is the only survivor of the rejects. Until now, when we're finding out Layla, who was a Lasathi, but she was still experimented on, did survive. Shadow, hello, welcome in. Thank you for joining. How you doing? So it seems like everyone wants to tell Kate? Yeah, that's the debate. Kate might hate Layla because Layla is Lasathi, but Kate also is the entire reason she's here is to try and rescue one of her friends who was not one of the rejects. And she did go out of her way to try and save all of the rejects, and they were all dead. You're doing good? I'm glad to hear it. As far as we know, they never fought. It looks like people are leaning towards Kate. Yeah, Shadow, I set up auto shoutouts. So, like, I have to manually put everyone in, but when you first chat in my stream, it will automatically shout you out. So, and I'm good. I don't know if I said that or not. Will says tell her. And remember, this is achievement hunting, so it doesn't actually affect our story all that much. Okay, I'm saying 2 tellers, and then Max seems undecided, so I'm gonna tell her. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're not throwing Kate under the bus here. We're just taking a risk. I just realized I never told you why I knew about the Beacon of Hope, I say. Do you remember meeting a girl named Kate while you were at the orphanage? Layla nods. I remember her, Layla writes. She always used to hang out with the Elementalist siblings that later became part of the Lasathi's elite task force. I heard that she was sent off to die in a distant jungle along with all the other orphans after the beacon got shut down. Well, your information isn't wrong, but I think that it might have led you to some wrong conclusions, I tell her. Kate is not dead. She survived. She's the one who told me about the Beacon of Hope. She survived? Layla writes, her face suddenly lighting up with joy. Yeah, I say. I met Kate here at the tournament, and I'm currently traveling with her. Would you like to see her? The joyful expression on Layla's face slowly gets replaced with one of sadness as she looks away from me. I don't think that she'd want to see me, Layla writes. I was being kept in a separate cell from the others at the orphanage, and we never got to talk much. Besides, I don't think that she'd want to meet a Lasathi like me, after all that she's been through at the hands of the Lasathi from the orphanage. Hey, you can't know that until you ask her, I say. I'm a Lasathi too, and I'm still friends with her. Remember? Layla does not answer, and she keeps looking away from me, as before. All right then, I say, as I get up from the ground. It's settled. As soon as we get out of here, I'll call her on the transceiver and we'll arrange a meeting between the two of you. Let's get going. Your clothes should have dried up by now, right? Layla nods hesitantly as she grabs my hand, and I help her up. We leave the fire behind and we head towards the tunnels beyond the wooden cabin. For the next 20 minutes or so, we walk in silence through the underground caverns using a long stick that I'd gotten from the cabin to test the ground for traps. In the areas that were completely dark, we had to rely on our stat devices to light the way before us, but luckily the glowing blue crystals that we'd seen before were also scattered throughout the tunnels, embedded into the walls, so we didn't have to worry about the lighting most of the time. He's rushing it a little too fast. Are you saying I'm reading too fast, or are you saying that Barry's getting ahead of himself? Alright, I'm gonna end here. This seems like a good stopping point. Transfer achievement squad. Transfer. Okay. Okay, I hope that you all enjoyed that. Thank you everyone Irish, thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. I know that this is probably a little different from what most people are expecting. What a nerd, thank you for joining. You love story time? Oh no. Did you just get here? I'm sorry. Yes, I am ending now. Yes, I'm so sorry. My throat is dying. And I need to go to sleep. But I do this at the end of my streams fairly frequently. Thank you for joining. I hope you have a really lovely rest of your day or night and you're able to find someone else to read to you. Or, also, for anyone that is interested in this story and they don't want to play it for themselves, which you can play it for yourselves if you want, it's free. All of my previous readings are in a Magium playlist on YouTube. So, my next streaming day should be tomorrow/today, which is Friday, when I will be playing Skyrim, probably, depending on mental health. You are all wonderful. I hope you have a really lovely rest of your day, or night, or whatever it is wherever you are, because I know that there are people who fall asleep to these streams, or they'll come here when they're just wanting to relax. I don't normally like raiding out, in case I go somewhere that's disruptive and I wake someone up, or I don't know. I've had people come in here while having panic attacks and stuff, and I wouldn't want to send them somewhere disruptive, so I'm just going to end now. But yes, thank you everyone for joining. You are wonderful, and I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow for Skyrim. Maybe group games. Bye everyone.